So today I'm going to, well, as you can see already, I've done a fair bit of stripping the little postie down, and so I've taken all the stuff off the back, the rack, the brackets that I had made, taken the motor out, and I'm going to today I'm going to just deal with the wiring, pull some of that wiring out and try and remove as much of the wiring as I can. I want to get it completely stripped down because I'm going to respray it and maybe get some powder coating done. I thought of getting the rims powder coated, and we'll see whether I do that. It means taking all the spokes off, of course, and that's a job in itself, but it'll look wicked good. Still don't have I have no idea of how I'm going to redo the bike, what I'm trying to achieve. So I've got to think about that a bit, and get all, so that at least I've got a plan that I'm working to. Right now, the plan is just to strip it down and take it from there. So we've got the motor out. The motor's on the bench, and like I've said before, I over-tightened the sun plug, so I've got to get a helix thread put in that. And but other than that, the motor is fine because it was rebuilt in Fremantle, so there's nothing that needs doing as far as the motor is concerned. It runs perfectly. So all I've got to do is sort out the sun plug and just clean it up a bit. So that's all that needs doing as far as the motor is concerned. And yesterday I received some of the parts, well, all the parts that I ordered in this particular order arrived yesterday, so I can kick things off on the Postie. So I ordered 2 new road tires that I'll be putting on the rims, some tubes, 2 tubes, new tubes for those, of course. The little box on to the left of the tubes there, the white box, that's got some spare headlamp bulbs in. They seem to go quite regularly. And then there's some mud flaps for the front and back, new mud flaps that I'll be putting on. The red thing is the new pod filter, and in that is a number 80 jet. You have to rejet the carby if you use a pod filter, so that's happening. Some new foot peg rubbers, those had seen better days after my ride. And then hand grips. Over here are it's just a bag of oil seals that go on. There's an oil seal at the main drive, at the front sprocket that isn't seated properly, so I just thought I'd put a new one in and get that properly seated. And this is just a muffler exhaust packing that goes down near the header of the exhaust. It's a weird kind of material that just holds some packing that goes around the exhaust there, that had sort of crumbled when I took that off when I stripped the bike down. So my first job is to put the new tires on these rims and clean the rims up nicely. this is the front tire that was on the bike. So this tire saw me all the way around. I didn't need to put a front tire on at all on the ride. I put 4 rear tires on, and this tire is just looks like it's got a lot of tread, but it's badly scalloped. It's you can see these knobbies here are worn flat, and that's just from I think it happens because of the braking action on the bike, that these the knobbies wear in a strange way. It's all counterintuitive. It doesn't look like a tire should wear like that, and I'm not sure if it's obvious when you look down at an angle there just how weirdly the tire wears. So anyway, it served me well, that front tire. And so the first job is take those tires off, clean up the rims and spokes, just buff them up a little bit, and then get these new road tires on. These are just straight road tires. So these are 275 width tires, and the knobbies are 3-inch width tires, so they're a bit wider and just fit into underneath the mud guards and of both the front and the rear. So it's a very tight squeeze in there when you put a 3-inch tire width on the back. So the 2.75 is the right width. So that's what's going to. Okay. Well, I've buffed these up, I think, as much as I'm going to. They look pretty good. There's a couple of pits on them. Even those will buff off if I spend a bit more time. But both rims are looking quite bling right now, I reckon, and they're ready to get the new rubber put on. I did buy went up to the Scooty shop and bought some rim tape. So that'll go on, and then I'll put the tires on. So this is the current state of my Postie bike. The red Peril that took me all the way around Australia is now in several pieces, spread over several containers. And the reason for that is it's kind of been repurposed, and I'm going to be rebuilding it, I hope, successfully, I hope, so that it just is going to be a runaround bike, just to sort of scoot between here and the shopping centre, or just run around to fetch different bits and bobs that I might have in my day to do. So it's kind of like, let's call it an urban scooter, but only better. And so I obviously stripped the whole bike down, and then put paint stripper on it and stripped everything down to basically bare metal. Gave it a good sanding, did what I could do to get rid of whatever marks I felt I needed to get rid of. I'm not too concerned with some of them. After all, it's still a Postie bike. And then sprayed them all with primer, and then gave it a coat of this silver, which I think is going to look really great once I've done that all up. So basically the frame, and as you can see in here, front mud guard, the side cover, the battery cover, the swing arm, the tank, and the front forks are all going to be well, are all now sprayed the silver, and then all the other bits and pieces, the wheel hubs, bars, the kickstands, foot peg brackets, and all that kind of stuff is done in a black, and then I sprayed all the motor and exhaust components, with the exception of the chrome exhaust guard. I sprayed in a heat resistant matte black. So all the engine covers you can see there, exhaust, some of the lower components of the exhaust guard, and the motor itself have all had the treatment. Then what's left of all of this is what's in here, which are, I'll come back to that. This is just a little couple of stuff from the electricals that I pulled out, the battery sort of liner, and some of the electrical components. And then what's in this container is a lot of stuff that some of it's not going back on the bike. For example, that red air filter housing is not going to go back on. I'm going to put a pod filter on the bike. This bash plate I don't know, engine guard is not going back on. The rear rack will go back on. Obviously the seat goes back on, and the wiring harness is in there somewhere, and the carby all in this box here, and well, not the wiring harness, I don't know where, here, I don't know where I put the wiring harness, it's somewhere, and the speedo and all that kind of stuff, that goes back on, obviously. Yeah, what else is in here? It's been so long since I looked in here. Oh, the headlamp. I've got a new headlamp housing as well, headlight housing, that will also be going on the bike. And yeah, so this is the job ahead, and then I've still got to spray the brake pedal arm, and what else? And then what's left in there are a bunch of bolts and nuts and you name it, axles, engine mounting bolts, you name it, and so I've got to sort through all of those, clean some of them up just so that they look nice when they're back on the bike, and obviously my biggest dread, not knowing what the hell I'm doing some of the time I may know a bit, but is that I'm going to end up with a fistful of bolts and nuts that don't have a home. So I've just got to take this one step at a time, make sure I put the right bolts back in the right places. I did take some photos and videos of the bike at various forms of breakdown as I was stripping it down, just so I could see how things were fitted, particularly with the electrics, and what bolts we used to affix certain parts of the bike. So that's it. That's the project ahead. And what I'll be doing is filming that, obviously, and I'll post that up, progress as it happens. I don't expect it to be too quick. I've got a whole bunch of parts. Right, progress so far. I've put the rear tail light assembly on. and got those wires going all the way through and into the wiring loom, and kind of got everything in position except and connected, except I have one loose black wire here which I don't have a buddy for, and I don't know where it comes from, but what I do have is a complete wiring diagram which I got for myself some time ago when I was connecting some little spotlights to the Postie Bike for the big ride, and I printed that out and laminated it, so it comes in useful in situations like this. So I'll trace all the wiring on the wiring diagram and see what's going on with that little black plug, and then aside from that, what I'll do then is I've got the ignition switch. I'll connect a battery, the battery to the battery leads, and see if everything kind of is coming alive. Excuse me, in the way I expect it to. And then there's indicator relays and all that kind of stuff which I need to still plug in, but that's easy, and then I'll see how we progressing at that stage. All right, so far then I've got all the wiring components assembled, and the battery box area here, and over here, let me just move that over, over here is the remainder of the wiring harness, and the ignition switch. Now obviously there's limited insight one can gain at this stage because a number of components still aren't connected, so such as the indicator switches and light switches and brake light switches, all that kind of stuff. But what I will go and do is just check the continuity of the wiring and make sure that we've got the right things connected to the right places, as one would expect. So that's my next little job. Just by the by, I discovered what this lone black lead is for, with a female plug on it. That and this extra green with a yellow stripe. There's a dual female connector in here with only one plug connected at this stage, and that's both of those are for the rear brake light switch. So I've disassembled the battery box here, as you can see, just to get access to that again. I'll take the I'm going to fit the rear brake light switch, which goes into that little slot there, and I'll fit that switch in, and then feed that wiring back into the box, and then reassemble all of this. I think that's all good to go now, with all the other wiring matching perfectly in there, so I don't think there's any issues with that. All right, so we have some progress, which is a good thing. Slow, but nevertheless progress. So let's not beat ourselves up about that. Now, what I've achieved so far is I've resolved all the wiring in the battery box, connected all the components necessary for that, and the rear tail light assembly, of course, and then run it up on the outside of the frame, which is not my preference, but you know what, I can do only what I can do, and we'll see how it all looks later on. And then you needed to get the headlight bowl is in fact the junction box for all the wiring, and so in order to, there's a number of steps you have to do in order to do this, because the wiring comes from all over the place. So for example, you need to fix the switch gear on the handle bars on both sides. So there's the indicators, the headlight switch, beam, the hooter, and on this side obviously it's the front brake light switch, and I have completely disconnected the kill switch because it's caught me out so many times, and I just think it's a useless piece of equipment. I never understand what purpose kill switches start, except for on my multi-strada where it's keyless, so you can only stop the motor by using the kill switch. But where you've got an ignition switch, for goodness sake, you just turn it off at the ignition. I don't get those things. Anyway, so what I've done then is I had to fix the indicators, of course, to the front. So all that wiring is now sitting inside the headlight bulb, including I had to get the speedo on and feed the speedo cable through the headlight bulb and bowl, and then that's it. You know, I've just got to keep moving forward with this. Now my challenge is I'm going to connect all this wiring and test it out, make sure it's all working. And the only thing I haven't connected now is this plug on the, I'll get to it, this plug on the wiring harness that goes to the motor, and part of that is the things like the neutral switch and that kind of stuff. So that'll need to wait for the motor, but I think I'll be able to, in the meantime, I'll be able to test the wiring in this form. Now, you can only test so much because the headlight only works when the motor's running. So obviously that power supply comes through this connector here, again, to the lights. So they don't, the tail, the brake light runs off the batteries, and the lights inside the speedo work off the battery. I don't even think the indicators do. I'll check that out anyway. So very little runs off the battery, and it actually needs the power being supplied from the motor. So that's so limited testing around what connections I make here, but they're kind of obvious because of the color coding of the wiring, obviously. So with no more ado, I'm going to get on to that. Okay, well, let's see how far I've got. It's taken me some time to get to this point, but not because I've been working on the bike, but because I've been goofing off. Anyway, I've got, as you can see, the front end's all done, well, for the most part. I've just got to finish off the handlebars once I've got them positioned correctly, and then I'll do all the cable ties and everything. But all things being equal, the front's done. Today I spent quite a bit of time on just putting the center stand on, and the right hand side stand, the brake pedal, connecting all that up, put the rear wheel on. I've still got to do the shocks on there, obviously, and then the right hand kickstand can't go on until, sorry, the left hand one can't go on until I've finished, I've installed the motor, which I'm hoping to do pretty soon. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. So it's coming on. Once the motor's on, I'm going to be probably, I'm going to say that's going to be 80% of the way through. And then it's just the tank, the exhaust, mount the shocks, as I said, and hopefully then we're good to go. So I'll do another video closer to the time, but for now this is where I'm at, and I'm looking forward to getting this done at last. I've got to do it in the next month or two because it'll be out of rego then I've got all sorts of hassles if I don't get it regoed in time. So that's my challenge and that's my aim. So till later. Alright, well, today I am going to attend to the motor, get it all assembled if possible, and then see if I can get that onto the bike. So that's the next job, is to get all that together. Not too much work there, I don't think. My only challenge is the sump plug, which I over tightened at one stage, and it just needs a bit of gasket sealer on it just to keep it from leaking, so I've just got to do that. So that's the job for the day. Alright, well, it seems I've got to disconnect all my wiring from the headlight, wherever I find the headlight, back there somewhere, and I've got to pull it all out back down here. Why? Because I forgot to feed it through this little hole here, and I try to reverse feed it by disconnecting everything here in the battery box. Thought, oh well, I'll disconnect that and reverse feed it through here, but that's not doable. There's just too much that's got to happen. There's a split down here, let me find it. So there's a split here that's got to be on this side, and I could try and bypass it, but I really don't want to do that. I want to do this as well as I can. So yeah, I've got to pull everything out and I disconnect everything in the headlight, and redo all the wiring again. Isn't that a joy? So there we go. This is what happens when you don't think when you do something, and don't pay attention. That's what's happening. So there we go. Okay, so let's let's see where I'm up to at this stage. Well, some of it's pretty obvious, but it's starting to come together. It's very slow, but very sure at the same time. And yesterday, with Colleen's help, I managed to reinstall the motor, and so that's in, and it's all of 2 bolts worth, 2 mounting bolts, but that's all done. And the electrics, I've checked them out. They seem to be working quite well. Everything does what it's supposed to do with the lights and the hooter and the indicators and everything, so that's all good, and the brake lights. So that's a relief, because electrics are normally where things can become a bit tedious. Anyway, so my next challenge is, because the shocks that I've got, the rear shocks, are not OEM parts. They are aftermarket shocks. These Vopo fully adjustable shocks, which are really the business, but they for a Yamaha, I don't know what model it was, but a 400, and I don't know if it was an XT 400 or XTL, I don't know, but anyway, the mounting points are all wrong on it, so it needs a different set of bushes. And I've got some nylon that I'm going to try and with my drill press over there, try and manufacture some bushes for it, for these mounting points. Let's just see it there, and at the bottom. Now the bottom I've kind of got sorted out. I've got some rubber bushes which work. It's the top ones that are the main issue really, and so I'm going to give this a go. If I don't succeed, I will go out to a place called Universal Bearings out at Weatherall Park, and they do have the right bush for the top here, and I'll just buy that, but I'll give it a go with the nylon to see if I can do something. So what's next? Well, what's next is basically just putting the finishing touches on to the motor, putting the kick starter on, gear, lever, and the seat. And once all that's done, we're almost there, and I'll take it off the stand and see if I can fire it up. So that's kind of it as far as updates go. I'll keep you posted on what happens after this. I did have to reroute all the wiring because I didn't bring it through this hole here, and because I've used this this sort of spiral conduit, it was too big to go in there, so I had to just cut it open a little bit so that everything could pass through there without getting too jammed in. So that was what I had to do there, and I reroute all the wiring, which meant taking it out from in the headlight, pulling it all the way back out, and then reconnecting it all again. So I've rewired this bike now about 3 times. So if you need to know anything about wiring a Postie bike, come and speak to me. So that's it. Okay, folks, till later. Okay, so that's it. The Postie's done. It's new. It's in its new livery right now, and I'm quite happy with that. It's not remarkably professional, but it just gives it a bit of an update, I think, and I've taken some unnecessary bits and pieces off of it, and as you can see, the pod filter on the right hand side here. What else? What else? Well, nothing really. It's come together reasonably easy. I've had challenges along the way, that's for sure. I had lots of wiring issues where I wired it and then I had to redo it, and then I'd connected it incorrectly, and eventually got my multimeter out and did it the proper way, which I should have done from the outset. But I like it. I like the way it looks right now. I like the motor, matte black like that. The silver kind of sets it off a little bit. And all that's got to happen now is I will put a milk crate on the back. I know that's a bit passé right these days, but you know, milk crates are useful on these little bikes, just for zipping around the neighborhood and going to the shops and all that kind of stuff. So a milk crate will go on the back. But that's it. The Postie Bike is done. I haven't started it yet, only because it's got no fuel in it, and who knows what happens when I try that little gizmo, or that little trick. But I'm hopeful that, you know, there's really no reason why it shouldn't kick over after a few kicks. So with that, I will finish this and get the bike off the stand and get the milk crate on the back. All right, well, there we go. Just purring away happily here. I'll let you hear the motor running just to prove it. So everything's working, and it's good to for me to take tomorrow and get it checked over for its rego, and then it's back on the road. So wow, I must say I'm quite excited about that, getting the little Postie back on the road again in its new form, and we'll see how much use I get out of it. I'm sure it's going to be a lot, because it's such a nippy little thing just to ride around the neighborhood. And so yeah, that's it, all done. I can't think of anything else on it that needs doing, until something falls off, of course. But for the time being, that's the Postie done. Job done. Fantastic. And thanks for all for watching. Those of you that have sat through this and watched it, I really appreciate that. And hopefully some of my errors won't be made by someone else giving this a go. I'll try and